Hey guys, we're going to do a quick review going over your study guide. This is something we're going to do in class on Friday, but I want to make a video so you have the opportunity to watch it later on. Remember, the test is March 10th, so we're just a few days away. This will be your last AOL before spring break, last one for third quarter, so I hope you're ready. All right, quickly, let's go through this. Kind of start with the causes of the Great Depression. Most of you guys are very familiar with the idea, the cause of the Great Depression. Being the financial collapse of some kind, some variety. And so, yes, Black Tuesday was a part of it. Black Tuesday being when the stock market itself collapses. But Black Tuesday in and of itself was not the only reason the Great Depression happened. So the things we've talked about, overproduction. So factories, companies, businesses are producing too much product. And then you have underconsumption. People are not able to buy that product. And so it's kind of this spiraling effect of we produce a whole lot of stuff. Well, now there's not enough people to buy that product. And so the product that was sitting there is not being sold. The factory that made it is not making money. If you're not making money, you lay people off. If you lay people off, you don't have a job. If you don't have a job, you're not buying the product. And so it's this vicious cycle of things that caused the Great Depression. Things of, again, overproduction, underconsumption, poor financial responsibility, people speculating on stocks and real estate, putting money into areas where they really shouldn't have been. And so we have some big problems. Just a lot of it comes down to irresponsibility, whether it's in the stock market or business, personal decisions that really leading to the collapse. Number 3 here, the Haley-Smoot tariff. So if you remember the Haley-Smoot tariff, that was a tariff the United States put on imported goods, and so that essentially shuts down global trade. So no longer is the United States getting goods from Europe, but at the same time, Europe established its own tariff on American goods being imported. So now the United States is not able to ship its goods to Europe. The idea is that if we put this tariff on European goods, Americans will only buy American-made products. Sounds good, but the problem is, people in America didn't have the money to buy anything, but then Europeans markets are not buying the American product, and so it just kind of spirals out of control. And so we have a real problem. And so you think about cause of the Great Depression, foreign markets and foreign competition wasn't really a problem. It kind of escalates in the end in that people are not able to buy foreign goods, causes a problem. So your Haley-Smoot tariff leads to a worldwide collapse in trade because there's no trade happening back and forth. Major problems during the Great Depression, a variety of things that take place. Family structure, divorce rates drop because families are staying together. They're not separated because they need to consolidate the resources. You guys know unemployment goes way up, so people are working less. Overall health of people goes way down. Malnutrition goes up. People are not able to feed themselves. Birth rates drop. People realize, hey, I probably shouldn't have babies right now. It's really not a good time to bring another life into this world just because our food's not good, our job's not good, our money's not good. Probably not a good idea to do this. The bank run. If you remember the bank run, that is when people started withdrawing their money from the banks, and so the banks no longer had any money to operate. They were literally out of money, and so people lost confidence in the banks. They drew the money out of banks, and then the banks failed. Big problem. Number 6 here, U.S. faced a series of recession and recovery periods during history. How is that knowledge used? If you remember, one of the charts we had seen is you have things kind of go up and things go down with the American economy. We recess and we go down, and recover and we go up, and that's something that had been happening throughout American history. And so the conservative viewpoint was that, hey, this is just a cycle. It's part of the process. No big deal. Let it work itself out. The more liberal viewpoint was, no, this is way worse than it's been before. We need to stop this now. We need to nip this, you could say, and so it does not continue. It doesn't spiral out of control. Difference between the conservative and liberal view on fixing the economy. Remember, the conservative is more, hey, let's just leave our hands off it. Let's let the market take care of itself. It's all going to come back up on its own. The liberal viewpoint was more the view of we need to get involved. We need to stop the bleeding while we can. We need to get our hands in everybody's businesses, figuratively. We need to control trade. We need to control unemployment. And so conservatives, government, stay out. Liberals, government, come on and fix things. Okay. So we have an election, takes place 1932, Hoover Roosevelt. If you guys remember, President Roosevelt wins in a landslide. He dominates because President Roosevelt has a new deal. He is going to fix everything. He's going to solve all of our problems. So the first 100 days, that's that time in which President Roosevelt and Congress are able to promote and pass a record number of bills. And so it was a very, very productive time. You start having a government that says, hey, we got to fix this. And remember, it's more of a liberal mindset, a liberal viewpoint that we got to fix all these problems. They got a lot accomplished in that first 100 days. All right, I'm going to jump down here to 13 because it ties in. What did Roosevelt call his program for emergency legislation? Remember, that's the New Deal. That is the New Deal. It's we're gonna have a new way of doing things, a new way of helping what's going on. Okay. Some more specific things. Some of the cause and effects of the natural disaster in the Great Plains, known as the Dust Bowl. If you remember, some of the things we had talked a lot about was, and it goes to the idea of overproduction. It kind of ties into number 12 here. So we have farmers all through the Great Plains that are producing massive amounts of product, massive amounts of grains, whether it's corn, beans, wheat, sorghum, whatever, and they're tearing up all that soil. Remember, the soil is held together by the grasses that have been there for thousands of years, and those grasses are deep. They're holding the soil together. They're able to withstand long periods of drought because their roots are so deep they're getting the water. Well, when the farmers plow up all the land, they cut those roots. They cut out what is holding the ground together. They plant crops, and those for short term are able to hold the land together. It's okay as long as there's rain. So the problem is, once all that rain stops, the crop dies. There's nothing holding the ground together. And since farmers were doing such massive amounts, partially because of World War I to feed the soldiers, you now have a lot of land that's been torn up. You don't have any what they called virgin soil left that's been untouched, or virgin grassland. So you have farmers planting way too much of their product, using way too much land, not doing any conservation efforts on the Great Plains. And so when the rain stops coming and the crops all die, nothing's holding the soil together, winds start blowing, and it has kind of a compounding effect to where now we have these dust storms, or dusters as they're called, that are blowing across the plains all the way out into the Atlantic Ocean. So it causes a lot of hardship for people's lives. We spent a fair amount of time talking about that. All right, so we already looked at 12, 13, 15, direct result of the Great Flood of 1936. So after we have these floods, which is kind of interesting, you have one part of the country that is desperate, absolutely desperate for water, and another part of the country that has way too much. But here's a time where the government gets involved, and the government establishes what they call the National Flood Control Program. So we're going to get in, the government's going to help control, make sure floods don't happen again. Or if they do, we're going to control it. 16, how the Agricultural Adjustment Administration tried to help farmers. Remember, that's where they're going to ask the farmers to not plant or store their grain so as you reduce the amount of product in the market. Remember, this is something that my dad, to an extent, participated in the late 80s, early 90s, where we would store grain in our grain bins and not put it to market. The government would then pay us a little bit of money to store that grain. Okies, remember Okies, those are people that are going from Oklahoma to California so they can get new jobs, new job opportunities. 18, how did New Deal programs like the CCC and the Works Progress Administration provide relief? Those are those organizations that are providing men jobs. And so that way, if you want to work, you can work. You're just going to be working through a government organization. You'll get enough money to help your family survive. Again, these are short-term solutions, not meant to last forever. Roosevelt's court packing plan, the effect it had. Remember, this was President Roosevelt's way of trying to make sure his ideas and his laws stayed, because the Supreme Court, being more conservative, being a little bit older in age, they were striking down some of President Roosevelt's more liberal policies. And so President Roosevelt thought, hey, let's for every Supreme Court justice over the age of 70, I am going to nominate, or I'm going to select a younger, more progressive Supreme Court justice to be with them. The whole idea being that his more liberal views, his more liberal laws would be able to stay in law and not be removed by the more conservative Supreme Court. It didn't work. It was shut down by Congress. But again, it's kind of showing this shift in the power the president feels like he has. Remember, this is a time in which you have a lot of people that don't want the government involved, but yet the government is getting more and more involved because it had to in many ways. And so this is a way in which Roosevelt was trying to, again, extend his power into the court system. Objective of the Supreme Court, or the Social Security Act, that's to provide financial resources for those that were retired or those that were physically unable to work, whether it's through some type of physical or mental disability. And so we're going to try, the government is going to provide financial resources for those people. Still exists today. Once you hit a certain age, you're able to apply for Social Security. You pay into it as you work to receive that money. Effect of the New Deal. The New Deal itself didn't end the Great Depression, but it definitely set a new precedent for the amount of power and authority the government has, and it kind of changed people's views on what the role of government is, on how much authority and power the government has in individual people's lives. Issues in which people are still discussing today when they look at how much or how involved should the government really be. So when we kind of wrap up, we think about all things Great Depression era. I did forget to mention knowing and understanding the whole desertification idea, when the ground goes from healthy to like a desert. Sorry, I forgot to add that. But when we look at the big picture of the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, it was a time in American history where a lot of people suffered. A lot of people suffered because of natural disasters, but also a lot of people suffered because of financial irresponsibility. And so the government gets involved. They try to fix things. And in many ways, some things were fixed, but it also established kind of a whole new precedent for what the president can do and what the government can do. But if you really look at what ends the Great Depression, it comes in the form of World War II, which is where we're heading next. So there's your quick review. Hopefully you find it useful, and have a great weekend. Bye.